Hey there. I just want to take a minute to say thank you. Thank you for listening. I didn't know exactly how this was going to go when I started this podcast. I guess you could say it was more of an inspired nudge. But every time I sit down to create a podcast, I want you to know that I'm thinking of you on the other end. I know you have a busy life, and I don't take it lightly that you're carving space to listen here. Thank you. And if there are topics you'd like to hear, find me on Instagram and DM me your ideas. I am listening. Without further ado, my guest today, Meshell Baker. The things that stand out to me about Meshell the first time I met her is her energy and wholeheartedness about what she does. She just might light a fire in your heart today. She teaches her clients to overcome their conditions, and she has walked the road in her own life to overcome conditions and set a stake for something much greater. She works with sales leaders and business owners to build unstoppable confidence, and she will be the first to tell you it's a practice. There are some nuggets in here. You might want to grab a pen and a notebook. Listen for her heart for what's possible and let it ignite your own. I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently, a podcast where we explore the ins and outs of what becomes possible when we're willing to think, do, and show up differently to the moments of our everyday lives. Hey, Meshell, I am so excited to have a conversation with you today. And gosh, before we hit record, it was just so fun getting to know you.
Yes. Carla, I am really excited to be here. I've seen you on my Instagram feed and all your little podcasts, and then sometimes you're just like, God, I want to be on her podcast. So now I'm here, so I'm really excited.
So excited. And Meshell and I met through ShiftCo, which is entrepreneurs group for conscious, impact-driven business owners who really want to do business authentically and differently, right?
Yes. Differently is importantly.
Yeah.
Just made that up.
I like that. So, Meshell, before we hit record, you were sharing with me, your story, like how you got here and some really pivotal moments in your life. And I would love for you to share that.
Yes. So the thing that I my recollection that takes me back to how I became who I am starts with my parents, who were both raised in Louisiana and both experienced colored only signs. My dad actually picked cotton. My grandfather's a sharecropper, but he was also owned his own fruit and vegetable stand. And my dad owned his own business. So from that aspect, they gave me drive and entrepreneurial spirit. But I was raised by both parents to be invisible, as they were taught, as African Americans were taught when they were raised, because it kept you safe. Just do good work. Don't be seen. Don't be heard. I had this curious question in my head always. If we can't be seen and can't be heard, why'd you have us? I used to always think that as a kid. And I was very precocious. I asked a lot of why, which is why I'm good at what I do now. Ask a lot of whys. And I was told not to be grown. Stop being grown. Stop being grown. So it also taught me not only to be invisible, but to suppress my desires to be different, my desire to see that I was seeing things different, that I was experiencing obvious differences than what everybody else was talking about in a room. And I learned really early to suppress that. So the journey to be an entrepreneur has been incredible. I started getting in trouble at an early age, because when you have these gifts and they start to evolve in you at an early age, it's the energy that you can't keep. So it goes somewhere, and mine's just drifted into trouble. I was raised in a blue collar urban area, and there was trouble. You could throw a stone throw away. There was some African American kids getting in some kind of trouble. I was incarcerated by the time I was 20. but I learned that that was not a direction I wanted to go. So my hypervigilant observation led me to be a good worker. I got a job, I became a good worker, and then I got a promotion. So I just kept observing what other people did to get the stuff. And that's what I went on probably a 20-year quest of this acquisition of stuff status, right? Got the college degree, got the house, got the MBA, got the fiance. I just kept getting, I have to need the author. I gotta get it. But it never lasted. It was so baffling. Like all that work, all that effort, you get it, and it lasted for mere seconds, mere minutes. And then it was on to the next thing. It wasn't until, pardon?
No, I was just saying back on the cycle, right? Back on the wheel. Get back on the wheel.
Jump in at any time if you want to make comment. Yeah, it's literally a hamster wheel, right? And it wasn't until my fiance passed away, I found myself in Austin, Texas, no family, no friends, just here working a job, a promotion. It's supposed to be the time of my life because he was meant to have relocated with me, that I suffered incredible depression. I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, depression, and suicidal ideation, and I was medicated. That I recognized that this was not and I was too chicken to kill myself. I'll be honest. That's the only reason you hear me now, is that I was really scared to kill myself, to end it all. So I decided if I wasn't going to end it all, why was I so depressed? I asked myself the why. And I was so depressed because of him. I realized that what my fiance gave me was unconditional love. I could do anything and that man wouldn't go anywhere. It was absolutely incredible. Not like I was a horrible woman, but there was nothing I could do that would deter him. He just thought I was cute. My tantrums, he thought I was cute. Anything I wanted, he would procure. He would find a way. If he had to stock away money, whatever, put it on layaway, he just thought the moon and sun rose and set on me, but he was an alcoholic. So to be honest, so he got an infection. It jumped into his liver. 2.5 months later, he was gone. High functioning, but nonetheless, and that led me to relocate. I ended up relocating anyway. My parents and family were close by. I started interfacing with my sister, and I recognized that she was struggling too. And so I put my efforts into what I was taught to do: give what you want. I wanted joy. I wanted happiness. I wanted to feel good. So I just started doing what I love to do, and I just started spoiling her and watching her laugh and spending time with her and having her down. And next thing I knew, I left corporate America to be her caregiver, ended up in some networking meeting with some women entrepreneurs. And the speaker talked about purpose versus goals, and it changed my life. But I will say, for people listening to this, the reason I ended up in that meeting, because I kept following things curiously. I didn't know when I got invited to the networking meeting. Well, I had never been an entrepreneur. I wasn't an entrepreneur. My goal was to go find another job in sales and take care of me and my sister. But for some reason, something in me was intrigued by the woman who invited me. And it called to me from the inside. I felt something and I followed it. Right. So I always tell people, follow that thing, follow your curiosity is your literal superpower. And we spend so much time aborting it. We spend so much time killing the things that come from the inside out. I mean, it's not that you're going to do all of them, but follow as many as you can, and it will lead you to somewhere so glorious you won't even recognize who you are.
I love that. Like you said, we spend so much time ignoring that or shushing it or questioning it or tossing and turning in it or whatever it was. And the same in my life, I did that for years and had done it so many times and then later regretted, because I saw that was the right thing to do. And finally made a promise to myself that I would listen sooner and act faster. And to me, that's, that's God, like sort of nudging the way. That's like that compass that's in there, just that's perfectly designed. And for so long, I was so focused on the outside, like you were, checking all the boxes, right? And it was someday it was just going to add up and it was going to be enough, but it was all external world. And it wasn't until I flipped it inside out and started taking care of what was in here and listening from within here that everything shifted. And so incredibly true. We have a lot of threads that are similar in that way. Yeah, we talked about some earlier.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm really curious. You had said, when you were incarcerated, and then you said you knew that was what you didn't want, right? Which in some ways, like, that's obvious. But I'm really curious about like that moment of shift for you that you knew you were going to head somewhere else. What was that, or do you remember?
I don't necessarily, I can remember gray. I can remember being in almost a dormitory with all the double beds, and we were racked up, and I was on the top because I was considered L7, which is technically a square because I was well spoken. My mother actually sent us to Catholic schools, so she got funding, and we went to parochial schools from kindergarten to 8th grade. So I learned how to be, as they say in African American community, when you're raised in an urban area, I'm bilingual. So I can speak Hood and I can speak, right, I can articulate. So that does not generally bode well in an incarcerated situation, right? You're generally not, at least when I was younger, you're not going to find many people who spoke that way and behaved the way I did. So I made a decision and did it was actually white collar crime. It was some credit card fraudulence, and it added up to large amounts that got me in trouble. And but I recognized as I was laying on that bunk that it was just not where I wanted to be. It's just something like, again, I just have these inklings inside of me that are so compelling at times that I just know that I know that I know. And I just knew. I didn't know where it was going to take me or where I was going to go, but I know whenever I follow that, it leads me to the next. And I always end up with these angels, right? I call them my angels or my guides or whatever, and they will say and intercede in some way that makes a new awareness that just kind of like, it's like they're there pointing. They're not actually pointing, they're standing there, and they kind of like give you this question. So I still have to know, but I know. I just know. And so when I got out, I started recognizing that, okay, who stays out and who goes back in? The people who have jobs, they stay out. All right, so get a job. Well, that wasn't easy because now I'm checking the box, incarcerated, and you're not getting a chance, right? This is like 30 years ago, right? You're not getting a chance, right? I just kept, and so it's the relentless pursuit until you find someone who gives you the chance, who will listen to you, look at the box, listen to you, look at you, look at the box, and then they go with their gut and give you the chance. And so once I got the chance, I was going to ensure that it was the best decision they ever made. That's the only thing that happened in my mind, was that once I got the chance, it would be the best decision that person ever made. They would not regret. And that became my focus. And so I actually was visualizing my outcomes, but I didn't know that's what I was doing when I was younger. Because I was also visualizing other outcomes for personal life. Professional life, I could always visualize really good outcomes. My personal life is where I carried so much shame. I created havoc.
I think that's so important for people listening, because those knowings, I can think back as you were talking, you're having me remember moments in my life where, like, all the pivotal moments, it was a knowing that it could be different. Something could be different.
Yes.
I didn't know how.
Yes.
I didn't know the steps. I didn't know anything about how I was going to get there, but I knew in my heart it was possible, and there was something real about it. and like putting a stake in the ground for that is what allowed me to create everything I've created in my life, from being a mom to having a family, to creating a marriage, to creating a business. And you're right. It's so powerful. And I never thought of it as like visualizing your future, but it really is.
It really is. Yeah, it is that. And so it's in those moments, like I said earlier about the aborting it, right? You have the idea and then all of a sudden it's the visual. Do you feed it or do you kill it? Right. And for most of society, it's the hope is too much because the past has caused so much, the past decisions and aligning with the difference between doing what we think we should have to need to ought to do versus doing what that thing that comes through us, that compels us, which is a very different thought in the differentiation. So that's not taught, and it's not innate in most people to differentiate.
Well, and it's interesting, like when you said, you were raised to be invisible. And while I didn't have that, I put that own limit on myself to kind of fly under the radar, not shine too bright, keep the light kind of, little dimmer. And I think it's like all those there's all those choice moments, right? We talk about doing differently, all those little choice moments where something happens and you can either do what you've always done and turn that light down and shrink, right? Or you can, just turn it up just a little bit, right? And it sounds like that's what you've done in your life.
Yes. Are you saying it sounds like I've turned it up or?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was maybe not your entire life, but over the last however many years that you're describing, that you keep turning that up now, correct?
Yes, yes, and it's still a process. So
It's a practice.
there is yet, it's one of my mentors, Rod Harrison had a phrase that he would say all the time that I loved, and I still say it. It's there is no there. And I know he didn't coin the phrase, but it was the first time it came to my awareness that when I heard him say it, that it took him several times for him to say it for me to go, oh, right, like. And that was the whole life before, the hamster wheel, trying to get something, an acquisition, trying to acquire something external to me was a there or a this, versus just becoming, right? Becoming joy, becoming grateful, becoming, belief, right? Becoming that, those. And that's been my journey now, is the becoming. And I can trace any time I'm frustrated, overwhelmed, doubtful. It's just because I've switched to achievement or acquisition and and I've gotten off the journey.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's such a good reminder I love that you said, almost like it's your indicator when you start feeling the urgency or frustration, or it's like you've gotten back in the game of getting somewhere and you got to get back out because the other game is way more fulfilling.
It's way more fulfilling, and it's not our fault, right? So when you go to the physiology and the biology of our brain, of the unconscious, which does 90% of the work, it wants to keep us safe. It has not developed at the rate of technology. So our brain still thinks we need to survive. It doesn't know how to naturally thrive. So we look for scarcity. We look for fear is meant to keep us safe. So it's why there's almost twice as many negative words in the English language than there are positive words, right? Because we're fear-based creatures. So true success, means that it's counterintuitive to the human nature. That means it requires work, and it requires daily work. And that's what most people are not akin or tuned to do. Right? They're telling them that they're being sold. If you do these couple of things and you get here, you'll have it. And I tell my clients all the time, it's every day, not every day, every day because I want you to feel it, right? And it's throughout the day. It's not just one time in the day, right? You're going to have to, it requires that at some point throughout your day, when you start this journey of deciding you want an amazing life. I say, if you don't have amazing thoughts, why are you going to have an amazing life? Answer me that. Thoughts become things. If you're not thinking amazing thoughts, seeing amazing things, treating people in an amazing manner, believing for amazing, why would your life be amazing?
It's so simple and so profound and not easy, right?
And not easy. Go ahead. You were just.
I was just writing the other day that you have to commit hard to having an amazing life. Like it requires commitment every day to showing up, just like you're describing. So I want to rewind back to something that you said. You said you went to that meeting and they talked about purpose and what was the other thing?
Purpose versus goals.
Purpose versus goals. I want to know what you heard in that room that day. Not what they said, but what you heard.
So what I heard was that goals were the milestones, the mile markers. It was the checking the box of acquisition. Once I achieved the goal, I got this. So I heard her say, oh, I went back and got my degree. And once I got my degree, I came out and I got a good job. And once I got a good job, I went and I, moved to New York and I got a sales position. Then I got to work with pharmaceuticals and I got an MBA. So it was that acquisition and I got a house and I was getting stuff was the goal. And the goal is always to get something, right? To acquire, achieve, accomplish, to get something. Purpose is me. It's who I become, right? Becoming someone of value, not getting value, but becoming valuable is my purpose. It's every human's purpose to leave this planet better for having been here. And what was my purpose? And that's what I went on a journey to find was my purpose.
So good. So,
yeah,
let's sort of fold in this confidence piece because I know it's a big part of what you do. So, why confidence? And just give us some flavor of what you're doing today.
Yes. So, well, thanks for asking. And my gift, if you're following me, is igniting confidence. And what I found in my experience, I looked up the definition of confidence is, believing and having that belief in something or someone. And so I have a background as that Southern Baptist and, believing. And I noticed that as I listened to, all of these entrepreneurs, all these successful people, the common thread that I kept hearing was they had a confidence. It didn't even need to make sense. They just had a belief in something that was so compelling that in spite of circumstances, situations, and people, they moved forward. They had a belief, and you can call it God, universe, Buddha, Allah, the source, the goddess, whatever you want to call it. They had a belief in something greater than them, greater than anything that existed on this world that they were here to give as a gift or to develop or create. And the confidence that in that ability is what I saw was the game changer for anyone's success. And that's who they became. And so not just the confidence to create, but the confidence in that they were the creator. They were the co-creator. And they embodied it and became it, and then they would just continue. So when I look at, and I'll give an example of celebrities, because they're quick references for people. If you look at someone like J-Lo or The Rock, their confidence is in their co-creation. So some people would say, oh, they're greedy. Why do they want more money? And money is just the result or the reward for their co-creation, right? And so they've tapped into who their gift is, and they just happen to have a gift they monetize, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And they are just having the joy of being in alignment with so powerfully with and confident in their ability to co-create it's literally like a game for them, right? And I always think that's amazing when someone can tap into their gift. So some people are able to do it at an early age. You look at like a Beyonce or a Bruno Mars or, a Bill Gates or Elon Musk. Some people find it in their teen years and they get to develop it throughout. And everyone has the ability. I don't care how old you are. Colonel Sanders, was it like 463, 483? It's 400 odd plus times that before he sold his recipe, right? And he was 65. So there's no expiration on tapping into the confidence of who you are and what your gift is.
I something I really
Did
like
that
about what
answer your question?
yeah. I think that something that it made me think of is that the way that you're teaching confidence isn't like this, like be confident in yourself. And at least that's what I'm hearing. Like it is that, but it's much deeper than that. And it reminded me of a moment where like I think I said to you, I've struggled with self-confidence my whole life. I remember as like a young girl in grade school, my mom I always got good grades, but she said they always marked confidence on my report cards, like I was lacking it. And I remember like I struggled with self-doubt and still do, but it's a practice, right? But I remember a moment of, I had just doubted myself for so long and so many times. And I remember a moment of realizing that like I'm doubting God and my creator. Like not only am I doubting myself, but I'm doubting my creator. And that was the moment that something really shifted for me, that like, who am I to question that design? And that like every time I'm dissing myself, I'm dissing my creator. And that something shifted for me in that moment. It took a whole bunch of pressure off of me having to be anything or do anything, but just kind of lean back and trust the design. And
Yes.
so is that a thread of what you teach?
Yes. Yes. Yes, it's an absolute thread of what I teach. So, and the work I do is around conditioning. So I tell people it requires time, it requires patience, it requires consistency. So, and so people will bypass me because they will just look at like, no, I want it now, right? But what I teach people is the habits. So my mastery is around helping you become the habit, right? Not to have anything, it's to become it. And that's the work that I do. And it's, and so like I tell people, if you don't know, just go to LinkedIn and read my reviews, and you might scan through and find the ones who will tell you about their experience with me, or I can actually give you the phone numbers. All my one-on-one clients are required before you sign up with me. Is the only thing I ask is that if ever someone has a hesitation, that I can give your number, and they go, absolutely. Right. Once we complete, like so it's that willingness to allow and empower and inspire someone else to say yes. It's not about you, right? What is your legacy? How are you going to leave? We make ripples in this world. How are you going to leave this world better off for you having been here? And you don't need to be, an Oprah or Elon or a Gates or somebody like that. Everyone makes a ripple. Everyone. What's yours?
Yeah. And then it's just about showing up for that bigger thing, right? Like you don't have to want to, you don't have to feel like it. You don't have to feel really brave. You just like commit to showing up for that bigger thing. And that's, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's not an easy thing in a world where everybody is trying to get something. I mean, we've even become really adept at making a give look like making a get look like a give, right? Right. I find it all with the way marketing is going. People have such a gift, and that's sometimes, challenges. Like I'll look at someone or see something or get an invite on a call, and it's like, claims to be this, and it becomes very disingenuous really quick because it's just like, oh God, not this again.
And it's just a complete turnoff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. People. Yeah. Feigning interest, because what the interest is that okay, so now my turn, because I'm going to tell you something so awesome that you're going to want to buy into it. And it's just like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. No, thank you. So there's so many more
Yeah.
places I want to go, Meshell, but I want you to
I
talk for
know.
there's so many places. But I want you to talk for a minute about being uncomfortable, because part of confidence and gaining confidence is getting uncomfortable, I believe. And so, and I know that's
Oh,
something you talk about, is getting out of your comfort
uh,
zone, and just speak to that for a minute.
um, yeah, it's so what I tell people all the time is that, and they show you the magic happens outside the comfort zone. So remember, fear is not real, right? Fear is, and it's been tested to show that physiologically, in our body, fear and excitement actually do the same thing. Right, heart rate, armpits, eyes dilated, breath, starts the rapid pace. It's the story that we tell ourselves. So mastering the story only happens with that being in the uncomfort zone or staying uncomfortable. Now, why people struggle with being uncomfortable is because they don't have enough references. So the mind is made up of 100 billion neurons. Everybody has the same, right? So we all have these, and it makes up the imagination that creates the story. So until you give your unconscious mind a storehouse, until it has enough references to offset the 90/20 over your lifespan, right? So it's not magically going to happen. It's the consistency which you keep giving and feeding yourself these stories that will help offset, so your mind will actually synthesize that emotion as something different in the moment, because it happens that fast. And the people want it, but they never give their mind. Like I said, if you want something, the question I always ask when people ask me about selling, for example, because that's my mastery, is around authentically selling and creating raving fan clients. So when they ask me, they generally say, oh, I want to sell, more, Meshell. How can you help me sell more? So I go, oh, that's great. So who's the client that you'd love to work with? Who's your ideal client? Crickets. Okay, no worries. That's not a norm. I get that. Okay, so you've never done any. So what's the last class or training you took on sales? Crickets. What's the last book you read on sales? Crickets. What's the last podcast you read? What's the last article? Like, again, mastering anything in life requires input. We are conduits. It comes through us, then it goes out of us. Thoughts become things. And until you learn to master your thoughts in any category, confidence is just another category, you will not get the output and the outcomes that you want. It goes through you. It has to go in you before it can come out of you. Please understand this, people. And it all starts with thought. So it's what you're reading, what you're looking at, who you're talking to, where you're going, how you're spending your time will dictate your outcomes, period. There is no other way. There is that. Like, I don't care what people tell you, they're lying.
You're so speaking my language. It's amazing. I mean, it is. And I mean, it sounds so simple, right? To change your thoughts, but it's so powerful. There is a direct connection. And I've been on that journey in my own life of cleaning up that inner world and all the noise in my head, because you're absolutely right. I have a speaking event tomorrow, and I caught myself starting to tell the story in my head about how scary this is and how uncomfortable it's going to be and all of that. And then I went back to another memory and reminded myself, it's usually only like the first 2 minutes that I feel all those feelings, right? Whether they're excitement or fear. And then I get really comfortable and have a lot of fun. But you're right. The story we're telling is so vital.
It's so vital. Yeah. But people don't take the time, and we're in a very busy world. So as I remind people, you got to realize Facebook, like Amazon, like, think of anything that you buy from now. They spend millions and billions of dollars to get your attention. So it's literally like someone, if you took a pack of wild dogs and threw them a chicken, what would happen? That's what's happening to your mind as soon as you leave, walk out of your house or turn on your TV or look at your phone. That's what's happening all day long. So for you to master it, it's going to take work. The goal, but the gift of mastering your mind is the results become exponential what you get to create in the life you get to live when you master your mind. It's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. So
It's just that initial work.
How do you coach people to, because it takes some like getting out there in the court in your life and getting uncomfortable to like the confidence follows that, right? And how do you coach people to get out on the court more?
The process that I go through is always the same. So it is, we go through discovery calls. If it's a group coaching, I'm going through, like if I'm working with a team of people, I'm going with the leader. So what's the vision? And if there isn't a vision, there's a vision creation process. So always it's, I tell people less than 5% of the planet has a clear and compelling vision, which would dictate the outcomes of most of the population, right? So it's creating that clear and compelling vision. So one of my gifts is vision mastery. I'm actually known in some circles that when I help you write a vision, you will manifest like money. It's crazy. But just again, because I told you I've been visualizing since I was laying on that cot 30 years ago. Right. So, but yeah, creating the vision and then helping people to become the vision. So it's going through the process, different processes of pattern interrupts, and there's conditioning programs that we go through. So it's just like an athlete, but the work that I do is the athleticism of the mind, building that mental muscle. And it takes, so it's, daily work plus weekly calls. And that's what I take all my clients through, if it be an individual or a team of people. That's when they're wanting to change the mindset, self-talk, and habits to success. It's requisite. And it's always, if with a team, the leader must go through it, because the one thing you can't fake is behavioral changes. So if I took your team, for example, through a process of helping them develop the habits, and the leader didn't go through, the team would know and within weeks that it wasn't happening, because your language and your awareness and your way you experience one another changes generally around week 3 and 4. It's so fun to watch the ahas and the epiphany start to happen around week 3 and 4 when they're going through the program. It is absolutely, it blesses my soul every time. Mm-hmm. And they generally, and by week 5 and 6, there's just like, you can almost give them the wheel at that point. But because week 2 and 3, around week 2 and 3, they kind of hate me. Because they're really,
my clients
we call it
we're stirring the pot.
Yeah.
You can't see her face, but you should have seen her light up when she was describing when she sees her clients when the light bulbs go off. So tell us about I want you to share about your confidence cards. What are they, and where can people find them?
Well, you can find them if you land on my website on the front, it'll give you a link to go to confidence cards, or you could just type Meshell Baker and confidence cards, www.com, Meshell Baker, my name, Meshell Baker /confidence cards. So the cards were created in COVID. So when COVID hit, I was a traveling speaker, and that's how I generated income, right? My path to income was being hired to speak. And then once I spoke, clients hired me. When they met me in person, it was just like almost, anyway, it was my funnel or flow or whatever. And so it dried up immediately. I didn't have all my, everything's canceled. The world was flipped out. And so the question I asked myself was not like, oh my God, my money dried up. I really sat and I said, okay, God, you told me I could do this. So you show me what to do. Tell me what to do. And I went on about my business. And the next thing I know, the question popped in my head was, how can I be valuable to my customers? How can I be valuable to the people I love to serve in the same manner when I'm not there? right? And then and this is what I do. I ask myself questions, and then the questions get answered. And then I realized, oh, create a product. And I, got excited. I was like, oh, what product? And then so I remembered I keep a journal of ideas. So I was like, oh yeah, the journal of ideas. So I went through the journal. And I saw all the different ideas that I've been collecting for 5 years, and the one that popped, and the one that at that point, because income was a big thing, and so I was like, what is the one that had the less barrier to entry, and I could would also have the biggest impact, right? Because I was looking for that, and the cards, and I was like, oh my God, I've always wanted to do a deck of cards. I got all excited, and I was like, well, God, what am I put on the cards? Right. So it was just this fun back and forth that I started having with God, right? Because I would get the idea, and then the next thing I'd be like, okay, cards. Yeah. So what am I put on the cards? Okay. So I got the cards, and I was like, well, how am I design these cards? And next thing I know, okay, if you said I could do the cards, I do the cards. And someone signed up. So then I went to Fiverr. So I started, and it was just this really interesting process of creating a deck of cards that actually have prompts on them. So the affirmation, the question of confidence is, what is confidence? Confidence is your belief in the moment of a circumstance, situation, or person that is causing you inconvenience, uncomfort, and uncertainty, that you believe you are enough. That's my definition of confidence. In that moment, you believe, so your mind expands and you remember what you already know. You remember who you are. You remember you're good enough, that you are enough in that moment. And then you get excited. And you also remember that anything to have what you never had before means you become. You don't get it, you become it. And anything that's causing you uncomfort is challenging you to become more, to be more. And so you start to get excited about the challenge versus overwhelmed and fearful and doubtful and anxious. And so the cards, and so how do you do that is that you have a storehouse, if you heard me say earlier, of value inside yourself. And so that's what I teach people how to do, is to build the storehouse and to maintain and continue to cultivate the storehouse of value, so they're constantly harvesting all the opportunity that attaches to you being valuable. Not you trying to get, but you just being valuable, right? And so what is valuable? How do you become valuable? Well, you have value. So what are values, right? And so the cards have all these values. I am confident. I am gift. I am, giving. I am strong. So they also have a question, right? Because what people don't realize is when they generally read these affirmations, they're actually feeling doubt a lot of times. Behind the affirmation, they're saying it and they're feeling imposter syndrome. They're feeling it feels fraudulent when you first say them. So I actually gave people prompts to actually to teach them how to engage in the behavior, so they're actually building the storehouse, because they're actually building the confidence storehouse. And so the cards have been like my clients who use them, and I got the feedback from people. I had one client, she's an Olympic athlete, and she had actually retired and was having identity crises and struggling with confidence to be a business owner and a speaker and all these other things. And so she got the cards early on, did them every day, and then called me 6 months after we finished. And she was like, oh my God, your cards are amazing. I'm going to feature them in this thing that she was doing, because I just requalified to go to the Winter Games 2022, because I was reminded that as I built up the confidence, what I really wanted was to compete again. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I've had all these different stories from different clients, but she's like, Olympic athlete. Right. So hers just kind of really had me pay attention and start. And then another one who was a director of an organization who has the cards on her desk, and she displays them on one side of her desk. And whenever she's frustrated, she just picks up a card and reads the value, and she acts out that value in that moment, because it switches her mind quick. And she's so funny because we got to talk, because I couldn't get through the system on the program, and somehow my call got routed to her. And then she called me back. We talked, and she was like, wait. And we're on the phone. She was like, wait, are you Meshell Baker that has a deck of confidence cards? I said, yes. She said, oh my God, I've been arguing with you for 6 months. Right? I was like, what? That. She was like, you have all these prompts that sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Sometimes like, Meshell, I don't want to do this. So they have this hero program, and I'm getting featured out to the 30,000 members. right?
Wow,
Because, and it was,
congratulations.
so I tell people, yeah, but it's that value. When you just seek to be valuable, it cultivates and it raises you. And like everybody's trying to get things. And what I teach people how to do is just to become it. So the cards
To
just teaches you
be.
a, to be valuable, and then the world will meet you there, right? It's like that whole saying, cream rises to the top. Is a concept what people forget is that you are cultivating what you want to receive instead of trying to get it, right? So it's the difference of harvesting versus hunting.
Yeah. So
And the cards teach you how to harvest.
you also have a beautiful
Yes.
give back that ties to your story. So just share quickly about that.
Oh yeah. So the quickly is this for every deck of cards that you purchase. I work with Truth Be Told, who is a nonprofit organization here in Texas. And so a woman in their program who's incarcerated and has her release date will receive a deck of cards. And that is
Love
my gift
that.
back, so that instead of the recidivism of going out and trying to figure out, they actually get to cultivate their confidence in who they are, while they are preparing to do other programs with this organization and really step into the belief that they deserve a life that's amazing.
Yeah. And I can't remember if we talked about it while we were live or before, but just that it's a practice, right? You and I are
It's a
practicing every day, practicing
it's a
confidence.
practice. We are practicing, it's really that it's amazing. I have those moments where I'm like, oh my God, if I could have known this when I was 20, right? But I didn't learn it until my 40s that, there is no there, as my mentor said, and you're practicing every day. And the people who have the most amazing lives give themselves grace that there's no right or wrong. You're just doing the best for who you are. And if you just focus on being the best version of you each and every day, you'll wake up one day, because you don't know when it's going to click in. That's people trying to get there instead of just become at ease with who you are, wherever you are. That's when life becomes amazing.
Ah. I think that's a perfect spot to close. Thank you so much for being here. I know you gave him your website, and I'll have everything in the show notes, but what a delight to just engage with you today. And thank you for all the gems. And I think we're going to have to create another conversation so we can dive into some other places.
Oh, well, thank you, Carla. You are a delight in your journey. I mean, this is inspiring because this is one of those storehouses. Listening to differently is how you begin to build that okayness with being different and being uncomfortable.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.